Stop for a moment, because maybe you're not who you think you are. Maybe your identity, your choices, your behavior, even the way you see yourself, has been shaped by something invisible, the gaze of others. From the beginning, you've lived trying to prove something, that you're strong, that you're capable, that you're enough. But deep down, what you really want is to be seen, truly seen. And that's where the problem begins, because the more you try to be accepted, the more you lose yourself. You smile when you want to cry. You say, "I'm fine," when you're falling apart. You post happiness to hide the emptiness. You live under the weight of other people's judgment, trying to fit into a mold that was never made for you. But what if I told you that the gaze that imprisons you can also set you free? What you're about to hear may completely change the way you see yourself and the world around you. Because understanding the gaze of others is understanding the invisible mirror that shapes your identity. And once you see how that mirror works, you'll discover something no one ever told you before. The image others have of you was never really you. From an early age, humans learn who they are, not by observing, but by reflection. The child who makes people laugh and receives laughter back learns that being funny attracts love. The one who gets criticized learns to stay quiet. Each gaze works like an emotional mirror, shaping what we believe ourselves to be. Sociologist Goffman once said, "Life is a theater, and we, the actors, learn our lines. By watching the audience react, applause becomes a compass. Booing becomes a wound. The more audiences we have, the more versions of ourselves multiply. There's the you at home, the you at work, the you online, each one calibrated to fit the expectations of whoever's watching. It's natural, almost unconscious, but dangerous when it becomes a habit, because slowly, authenticity gives way to performance, and the fear of disappointing turns into an invisible leash, tightening around every gesture and word. Imagine living surrounded by distorted mirrors, each one showing a different version of yourself. That's what happens when the gaze of others fragments who we are, until we become a mosaic of other people's perceptions. And here's the cruelest part. We start measuring ourselves by those reflections, forgetting that the mirror doesn't show who we are, only what the other sees. Sometimes, what we call personality is nothing more than the result of years of social conditioning. The spontaneous child, who was told she was too much, learns to shrink. The sensitive teen who was mocked learns to hide. And the adult, without realizing it, carries inside edited versions of themselves, built to fit into spaces that never truly accepted them. Then comes the subtle addiction. Approval. It enters gently, disguised as affection or belonging, but soon becomes dependency. We start measuring our worth by the reaction of others, a like, a compliment, a glance of acceptance. Without noticing, we hand over control of our self-worth to an invisible audience. That's why, when the gaze of others changes, we change too. That's when the mirror begins to turn, because the reflection no longer frees us. It traps us. Jean-Paul Sartre once said, "Hell is other people, not out of hatred, but because their gaze turns us into something we never chose to be." The moment we're seen, we stop acting naturally. We start performing. Just knowing someone is watching changes our essence. Freedom dissolves, and the character takes over. Think of when you're alone at home, dancing, singing, carefree. It's pure. It's natural. It's you. Now imagine someone walks in. Instantly, your body tightens, your voice adjusts, Your laughter shrinks. That tiny shift proves Sartre's point. The gaze of others turns us into objects. And that's where fear begins. The fear of being wrong, of being judged, of disappointing. It's not the other person who imprisons us. It's our fear of being seen as something we don't want to be. We live on a stage filled with invisible eyes where applause and disapproval shape the character we call self. Inside each of us lives an imaginary audience. Even alone, there's a voice asking, "What will they think of me?" That question guides our choices, molds our dreams, dictates what we show and what we hide. The external gaze becomes internal, and the stage turns into our mind. But there's a breaking point. That moment when you realize you've been living for an audience that no longer even exists. And when that realization hits, something inside rebels. You ask, what if I stopped performing? That's when Sartre's hell begins to collapse. Because hell isn't other people. It's the fear of seeing yourself through your own eyes. We live surrounded by roles: child, partner, friend, professional, the balanced one. Each role comes with lines and gestures we've learned to play. Goffman was right. Every context demands a performance. But the problem is when the performance becomes a prison. Being authentic today is almost an act of rebellion. To show your real self can cost you acceptance, status, even love, from those who only loved your edited version. Simone de Beauvoir once said that the freedom of others limits ours, but also reveals it. To coexist, we constantly negotiate who we are. In every encounter, we give something up: a truth, a tone, a part of ourselves. Masks aren't lies, they're survival strategies. But the danger is forgetting the face underneath. How many times have you smiled when you wanted to cry? Or said yes, just to avoid conflict? That's the price of acceptance. We trade authenticity for belonging. It's the swallowed no, the quiet, "I'm fine," the disguised, "I don't mind." And the more we wear the mask, the more natural it feels. Until one day, it sticks. But there's a sad beauty in it, because the mask also protects. It keeps the world from touching your open wounds. But too much protection becomes isolation. Loneliness isn't the absence of people, it's the absence of yourself. Life is a paradox. We need masks to exist, but we must remove them to truly live. It's a dance between adaptation and authenticity, between the fear of rejection and the longing to be real. And somewhere in between what we show and what we hide, the soul begins to suffocate. Simone de Beauvoir believed that no one is free in isolation. We are free, but always within a world filled with others, each carrying their own will and truth. And it's exactly in that crossing of freedoms that the ambiguity of existence is born. You want to be authentic, but you also want to be loved. You want to be free, but you fear losing connection. Life is made of paradoxes. The more we seek independence, the more we realize how much we need others to exist. The gaze, the touch, the word. All of it confirms us, sustains us, reflects us. And yet, that same gaze can imprison us. Freedom, then, isn't the absence of limits. It's learning to dance within them. Beauvoir said, "Existence is ambiguous because we are both subject and object. We are the ones who define and the ones who are defined." Maybe the secret is not trying to eliminate this ambiguity, but to understand it. Think about when someone judges you and instead of shrinking, you stand tall. In that moment, the gaze that once trapped you becomes strength. Judgment turns into awareness. Criticism stops being a sentence and becomes raw material for growth. The freedom Beauvoir speaks of doesn't reject others. It learns to exist with them without losing yourself. The freedom to be seen and still remain true. The courage to look at yourself, even while being looked at. Then comes a moment when the mirror flips and you realize you're also the gaze that shapes someone else. You judge, you label, you define, you build characters in others the same way they built you. The pain of being judged is the same pain you cause when you look without understanding. How many times have you turned away from someone without knowing their story? How many times have you believed what others said without feeling for yourself? Or fallen in love, not with who someone truly was, but with who your mind wanted them to be? And when reality appeared, it wasn't they who changed. It was your fantasy that crumbled. You fell in love with the illusion you created. That's the power of the unconscious gaze, the gaze that repeats the same wound that once hurt us. The social mirror is an infinite system of reflections where everyone looks and is looked at without knowing who started the game. But recognizing this can be freeing, because when you realize you are also the other in someone else's life, empathy is born. You stop reacting and start understanding. Judgment turns into curiosity, anger into compassion, because everyone carries invisible wounds that a hurried gaze can't see. The woman who seems arrogant may just be terrified of rejection. The man who appears cold may be hiding how small he feels inside. Each person is a cracked mirror, trying to reflect their best side. To understand the gaze of others is to understand your own, because the outer world is nothing more than the reflection of your inner state. When you change the way you see, what you see changes too. Judgment dissolves, and in its place arises presence, the pure act of seeing without fear. In the end, the gaze of others will always exist, but its power over you depends on how well you know yourself. The more awareness, the less prison; the more presence, the less fear. Because once you understand that every judgment is just a reflection, not the truth, the mirror stops distorting and starts revealing. The truth is, no one escapes the stage. We're all being seen, judged, commented on, but there's a difference between acting and living. The actor performs to please. The awakened human acts to exist. So ask yourself, how many of your choices are truly yours? How many parts of you are still trapped in the need to be accepted? If this video made you see yourself differently, then it's already done its job. Observe less to judge and more to understand. Look at others the way you wish to be seen, with presence, empathy, and truth. And if you want to keep exploring reflections like this, subscribe, turn on notifications, and allow yourself to see beyond the mask. Sometimes it's suffering, not love, success, or applause, that awakens what nothing else could reach. Pain has a silent power. It shapes, refines, and gives meaning back to the soul. In the next video, we'll talk about that, about how suffering can turn into strength, and how, through wounds, we develop the eyes that finally learn to see. If you feel like continuing this journey, there are supplementary materials in the comments, reflections and readings that delve deeper into these topics for those who want to understand themselves more deeply. Before you go, subscribe, turn on notifications, and tell us in the comments What has the gaze of others taught you about yourself? Because in the end, all the soul ever wants is to be seen, not by eyes that judge, but by eyes that understand. When you finally learn to see yourself through your own eyes, the whole world changes the way it looks at you.